Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about news, both how you find it and how you consume it. Now, before we talk about the horrible ways in which you find and consume news today, I want to put you in a little time machine and take you back about 100 years and explain to you how all of this started, so that when I read the story to you today, you will understand just how fucked we are. Here we go, time machine. Now, about 100 years ago, or what you kids would probably not call ye olden times, people used to consume news through a thing called the radio. It was a big box in your house, and people sat around it, and then sounds came out of it, and they all sat around and listened to it together. I'm not joking. This is actually what they did. Yes, even before my time. Families used to gather around the radio, turn up the volume, and listen to somebody like me, only without this awesome video that you're also getting with the sound of my amazing voice. Yeah, that's pretty much how people consumed media. 4, 6, 8 hours a day, 100 years ago. And what happened? Well, is what always happens, is technology advances and then government finally catches up and slaps legislation on it. And this race continues. So back in the 1920s, when radio became prevalent, the U.S. government set up a little thing called the Federal Radio Commission. And basically what they did was start to license and regulate radio broadcasting. After all, the airwaves were new, and they had to find ways to stack all the different frequencies on top of each other so that radio stations didn't cross signals, and then people couldn't get any news or any entertainment. Fast forward 20 or 30 years, and you get to the point where TVs start popping up in people's houses. Government again revisits what they're doing. They take the old Federal Radio Commission and they turn it into the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. And the FCC starts to set broadcast standards. Two key amongst these are that, number one, to receive a federal communications license, in other words, to be able to broadcast, you as a network had to guarantee that 1 hour a day of all of your programming would be dedicated to news, to informing the public, so that TV wasn't solely just about money and entertainment, but it expanded the world for people. It let them hear news about the other side of the country or even around the world. This was generally viewed as a good thing. And in agreeing with licensees to do this, they also implemented what was called the Fairness Doctrine. Now, when the Fairness Doctrine became fully codified, it not only required FCC license holders to broadcast an hour of news and information every single day, but that they also had to allow the airing of opposing views on any issues that the news covered. This meant that programs on politics were required to include opposing opinions on the topic under discussion. Broadcasters had an active duty to determine the spectrum of views on a given issue and include those people best suited to representing those views in their programming. In other words, you had to have knowledgeable people come on and discuss both sides of an issue that they are knowledgeable about. This is how they ended up putting out information rather than pure marketing or propaganda. It seemed to work pretty well. I have been led to believe that back in the 1950s, as all of this information was being pushed out to people in a non-biased way, that the United States of America thrived and became the envy of the free world. We had the most educated populace on the planet, and I've been told those people did rather well for themselves. However, since then, advertisers, marketers, and a whole slew of different special interests went out of their way to slowly lobby and chip away at all the FCC rules and regulations. And eventually, in the 1980s, the Fairness Doctrine went away. sometime during Reaganomics, when the airwaves magically and mystically somehow became filled with conservative radio broadcasters and cable news skyrocketed. And all of a sudden, there were huge markets and tons of advertising dollars, and nobody was required to actually tell facts anymore. Essentially, the news cycle became a shitstorm for advertisers to buy little 30-second blocks in the middle of. Now, why is this history lesson important? Well, in the last 10 years, as more and more news has moved online, the problem has gone from bad to worse. And once the bottom fell out of internet advertising, thanks to the fact that there are about 6 billion different sites that people can go to traffic, well then, it became financially not cool to be a broadcaster or to own a news organization. And so news outlets were forced to choose between one of two revenue models. Number one, take your content and put it behind a paywall, assuming that people will pay for good journalism. Route number two is get rid of all the journalists, get a few marketing interns, and write a whole lot of marketing and propaganda, and just sell it as news. Well, today, arguably the largest news agency around the world, Reuters, announced that it is going to go behind the paywall at a price of $34.99 a month, which sounds like a lot of money to me if you're a member of the working class and actually want to stay informed about what's going on in the world. Reuters.com draws 41 million unique visitors monthly, according to the company, but it has not charged for access like other news sites in its business-centric niche have been doing for quite some time. It will let users read 5 stories a month for free, and then plans to charge $34.99 a month for a subscription. That's a bit pricier than a sub to the New York Times, which is now $18.42 a month, but closer to similar news organizations of its type, including the Wall Street Journal, which put its paywall up in 1996, and Bloomberg.com, which added a paywall in 2018. Both of those costing between $35 and $40 a month. Other news sites have also followed this same method, including Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos and the Amazon Corporation. I've been told those people have a lot of money, but even their content is behind a paywall. If you want to know what those journalists at Washington Post are writing about, you just have to pay for it, because even information is no longer free in a hyper-commodified capitalist market. In-stage capitalism. How online news is paid for has been the topic of discussion among publishers for years. Online advertising doesn't bring in the level of revenue that print ads used to for newspapers, and publishers often have to rely on platforms like Facebook and Google to push their content out to readers. Google has battled with lawmakers in Australia who want the search giant to pay publishers for their content. And amid renewed scrutiny of social media platforms and how they siphon ad revenue from news publishers, a bill introduced last month in Congress aims to give more leverage to publishers when negotiating with platforms for a share of ad revenue. While both Google and Facebook have initiatives that pay some publishers to license their content, for many news outlets, online subscriptions are a major part of their revenue streams. But here's the larger issue. What does the news look like that people can afford to consume? You know, the free news. Well, I thought I would go to a few platforms today and show you what's on the front page of free news websites. Just, for a little comparison, as opposed to whatever they might be running on the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, which I couldn't tell you about because I don't have $50 a month to spend on 2 online newspaper subscriptions like the vast majority of people in the United States of America. So, what's going on in the free news world today? Well, if you go over to the Fox News website, which is totally free, well, you can find out about how the Black Guns Matter founder says that urban communities are being manipulated by extreme left media. Urban communities. Black people. Well, that certainly seems like a piece of hard-hitting journalism. I'm stunned that I don't have to pay for that one. What else is out there? I'm dying to know. Well, you can always skip on over to the Daily Caller and read about how 42% of Trump supporters support criminalizing medical transitions for transgendered minors. Yeah, this seems like cutting-edge news on the same day that video footage was released showing Chicago PD executing a 13-year-old boy. But yeah, you can read about this for free. Over on Breitbart.com, the riveting front page news story of the day, California weighs equitable math. Goal of obtaining correct answer is racist. Whoa. Well, I mean, there you go. I totally don't need to hear about what's going on in the Derek Chauvin trial. I mean, sure, it's important news, but WAPO wants to charge me too much for it. So I guess maybe I'll just read this Breitbart article about, racist math. And hey, why get facts from a global news organization like Reuters that you would have to pay for, when for free you can read the Washington Times and learn all about how fed-up conservatives fight corporations and woke activism, telling them to get the hell out of politics. But they still take their donations. And of course, what free news information media day would be complete without stopping by OAN, the One America News Network. Front page story today. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations promotes leftist race theory. So here we are in the year 2021 with almost 30 million American households facing eventual foreclosure or eviction as soon as all the COVID moratoriums go away. And yet, not only are we as Americans paying more for basic services and utilities than we have ever paid before, and a larger percentage of our paycheck than we have ever paid before, but now even things like information and news come at a premium price. But marketing and partisan propaganda, well, that'll always be free. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet, and I am out. Peace.